Hi, thank you for coming today. We're just going to start off by asking you a few questions about borderline personality disorder. Borderline personality disorder is a condition characterized by difficulties in regulating emotion. This leads to severe and unstable mood swings, impulsivity and instability, poor self-image, and stormy relationships. After hearing the clinical definition of what BPD is, do you feel like because you have been diagnosed with this disorder that it defines who you are as a person? If so, how does it bother you?
Yeah, only because sometimes people make it a definition. I have a lot of experience with people characterizing me as a person, saying I do certain things because I have borderline personality disorder, or instead of I do things just for the simple fact that I am a person. It bothers me because I still am a person and I still have real feelings and I still have real emotions regardless of if I have borderline personality or not.
At what age were you first diagnosed?
I actually was diagnosed before the actual cutoff age of borderline, so I was 17 when I was diagnosed, but I was almost 18 at the time.
The current borderline personality disorder criteria listed in the DSM-5, of which at least 5 need to be identified in a patient to permit diagnosis, highlight a lack of stability in the lives of BPD sufferers. This instability can permeate through the diagnosed relationships with others, their views on their self-image, and their life goals and values.
This BPD Diathesis-Stress Model is utilized during the exploration of how biological traits or diatheses interact with environmental influences or stressors to produce disorders. BPD manifests itself through the interaction between a patient's genetic vulnerability and harsh treatment in the family environment. Studies show that BPD features are 42% genetically influenced and that children with a family history of psychosocial disorders, when compared to a child with no family history, were 2.53 times more likely to develop BPD. Environmental factors influence the remaining 58% of variance in these features. Children portraying a history of familial mistreatment, physical and/or verbal, were 2.15 times more likely to develop borderline personality disorder. Children portraying both factors were 13.14 times more likely to develop BPD, indicating that there is a significant interaction between diathesis and stress.
BPD is about 5 times more common among first-degree biological relatives. Does anyone in your family have this disorder or other diagnosed disorders?
Not BPD. My grandma was bipolar. My mom has severe depression and anxiety, but other than that, nobody else in my family was diagnosed with anything. I have an unstable relationship with my dad, who pretty much comes in and out of my life. Also, my cousin, who I was extremely close with, had passed away when we were both at the age of 16. So that was another big event that happened. So all these people that I was really, really close to, they were pretty much dying, so I didn't really have a close relationship with anyone else. And I didn't even have a close relationship with my own mom.
Some research has shown changes in certain areas of the brain involved in emotion regulation, impulsivity, and aggression. In addition, certain brain chemicals that help regulate mood, such as serotonin, may not function properly. Findings show that there is a greater reactivity to stress in the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal, or the HPA axis. The hippocampus contains high levels of glucocorticoid receptors, which make it more vulnerable to long-term stress than most other brain areas. Stress-related steroids can affect the hippocampus by reducing the excitability of some hippocampal neurons, inhibiting the production of new neurons in the dentate gyrus, one of the 2 main interlocking parts of the hippocampus, and causing atrophy and degradation of dendrites and pyramidal cells of the CA3 region. Past research has shown that stress has an important impact on regions of the brain that are rich in type 2 glucocorticoid receptors, like the hippocampus.
Have you ever experienced problems with great amounts of stress and conflicts with relationships with others, specifically people that you're really close to?
Yes, my personal experience, in your mind, you don't try to think this is the way you're constantly thinking. Like, love me, love me, love me, and the people around you, like, they don't hate you or anything like that. They don't think negatively of you, but you literally just feel like you're abandoned and they don't want anything to do with you, which is not the case at all in reality. I understand that, but there's like a lot of people with BPD that don't understand that.
Results of brain imaging scans in previous studies have revealed a nearly 16% reduction in hippocampal volumes of BPD patients when compared to controls, and that concentrations of gray matter are significantly reduced in both the right and left hippocampus of BPD patients when compared to the concentrations of controls.
Patients with borderline personality disorder had significantly higher density of gray matter, the brain's working tissue, and the brain's fear hub, the amygdala. MRI scan data shows where patients and controls differed. The anterior cingulate cortex, highlighted in red, regulates the brain's fear hub, which is underactivated in patients with borderline personality disorder. fMRI scan data reflects differences in activation between patients and controls. It's almost comforting to know that there are many defective regulators in our brains. At the very least, it indicates an actual problem and not just something we could potentially be seen as making up.
After experiencing everything that you have throughout your life so far with BPD, is there any advice you could give to other people who have been diagnosed with the same disorder?
Yeah, mainly about the support system. Make sure you have a support system. Make sure you have people that understand what's going on. Don't let yourself be labeled by the disorder. I feel like the more people that understand, like, hey, you're not crazy, hey, you can't really control what's going on, you can cope, you can get through it, and every day isn't going to be perfect. I haven't had perfect days, but I would just keep going. Just tell yourself to push through it. Don't become a victim of circumstance. Don't be a statistic. There's so much to live for regardless of what you see right now. So that would be my advice to anyone else that suffers from this disorder.